You're not trapped by them. You're trapped by the pattern. You keep asking, why can't I leave? But the answer was never about them. It was about the pattern. You were trained to believe that love means chasing, fixing, apologizing. You think this pain is love because chaos was all you knew growing up. What you're calling connection is actually conditioning. You're not choosing them. Your trauma is. And it's time to choose you. You know it hurts. You've known for a long time. But you stay. Not because you're weak. Not because you're naive. And not even because you're in love. You stay because a part of you still hopes. There was a version of them, in the beginning, who made you feel like you were finally safe, finally seen. That version is gone now, but your nervous system is still chasing it like a ghost. You don't call this addiction. But it is, because it's not them you can't live without. It's the version of you who felt loved, wanted, whole. And even though they disappear, come back, disappear again, you wait. You hope, not for something new, but for the return of the moment that once made sense. And that, right there, is the trap. There's a question that haunts you late at night, isn't there? Why can't I just leave? You've left before. You've tried. You've promised yourself this was it, that next time the door would stay shut. But then comes the message, the look, the apology. Not a real apology, just enough. Enough to reset the cycle. Enough to make you second-guess what you know. Enough to seduce your inner child back into the cage. And suddenly you're right back where you said you'd never be again. So let's be honest. This isn't about logic. It's about the bond. A psychic bond that has hijacked your nervous system. Carl Jung would tell you, you are not dealing with a person. You are confronting a pattern. Because what's happening isn't about now. It's about then. You see, love was never taught to you as something safe. If love was chaos in your childhood, if affection came in random bursts, followed by silence or shame, then your brain learned something dangerous. This is what love feels like. Not peace, not steadiness, not reciprocity, but unpredictability. And so now, here you are, addicted to uncertainty, because somewhere deep inside, you associate confusion with care. There's a name for this. Intermittent reinforcement. It's the same mechanism that keeps gamblers pulling the lever. It's the same conditioning used to train animals. You reward them just enough, just randomly, to keep them coming back. And now it's being used on you, unconsciously maybe, but effectively. Completely. That's why the more this person hurts you, the harder it becomes to leave. Because every rare moment of kindness feels like oxygen. It doesn't matter how small it is. A compliment, a late-night text, a glimpse of who they used to be. Your brain lights up. Your heart races. Your hope returns. You think, see, it's not all bad. They're trying. Maybe this time. No, this is not progress. This is the trap closing. You're not with them because of who they are now. You're with them because of who they were once. Or rather, who they pretended to be. You've built an entire identity around waiting for that person to return. But what if I told you they never really existed? What if that first version of them, the warm, attentive, loving one, was not their truth, but their tactic? Because when someone wants to control you, they don't show up cruel. They show up perfect. Here's the hard truth you've been avoiding. You don't love them. You love who you thought they were. You love what they represent. The idea that you are lovable, chosen, special. the fantasy that you are finally enough. But the cost of holding on to this fantasy is your reality. Because every day you stay, you shrink a little more. You begin to believe that love means pain, that affection must be earned, that your standards are too high, that maybe you really are too sensitive, too much, too dramatic. And this is not love. This is self-erasure. Let's pause here. You might be feeling angry, or ashamed, or numb. Let that happen. This is not your fault. This is your awakening. Because what has kept you in this relationship is not weakness. It is wiring. It is the conditioning of your inner world, learned over years of abandonment, inconsistency, and unmet needs. You've mistaken the absence of chaos as the absence of love. But that is not your fault. That is how you survived. And now you are starting to see it. This is the beginning of the break. Not from them, from the illusion, from the lie that you must suffer to be chosen. From the belief that silence is strength, that confusion is care, that if you just stay a little longer, everything will make sense again. It won't, because it never did. Now breathe. You made it this far. That means a part of you is ready. Not to fight them, not to fix them, but to rescue yourself. Because this story is not about getting them back. It's about getting you back. Why leaving hurts more than staying, and how your mind is chemically addicted to the cycle. But for now, just sit with this one truth. You are not trapped by love. You are trapped by the hope that love will return. And today, that hope finally met reality. You think you're in love, but what you're feeling is withdrawal. You see, people confuse the two all the time. Because when you finally try to leave, when you take that first step into silence, your body doesn't feel free. It feels panicked, empty. Like the air has gone missing from the room. It doesn't feel like healing. It feels like dying. That's why you doubt yourself. That's why you go back. Not because you miss them, but because you miss regulation. They became your drug, and now that you're sober, everything shakes. The silence screams. The loneliness claws. Your mind replays every good memory on a loop, like a cruel highlight reel. Your body wants a fix, even if it kills you. And here's the thing no one tells you. Withdrawal always masquerades as love. But don't be fooled. That ache inside you, that's not longing. That's your nervous system detangling itself from a lie. Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." And this is exactly what's happening now. You're not chasing a person. You're chasing the pattern. A pattern written in childhood, reinforced in adolescence, solidified in trauma. Let's go back. Who taught you how to love? No, not through words, through presence. Absence, reactions. If you grew up having to earn attention, apologize for existing, or walk on eggshells, then your brain began to equate love with self-abandonment. And so now, every time this person ignores you, criticizes you, disappears, you don't recognize it as a red flag. You recognize it as home. That sick comfort. That familiar ache. It feels like love, but it's just repetition. That's why when they finally text back, your body lights up. The reward is small. A word, an emoji, a memory. But it's enough. Enough to cancel out 3 days of silence. Enough to make you question your pain. Enough to keep you hoping. This is intermittent reinforcement in full effect. And it's the same psychology behind every addiction ever studied. It's not the pleasure that keeps you. It's the unpredictable reward. Because certainty gets boring. But unpredictability? That's addictive. And now the bond isn't just emotional. It's chemical. Your cortisol, dopamine, oxytocin, all wired into their behavior. They pull away. Cortisol spikes. They text back, dopamine floods. They apologize. Oxytocin soothes. Your body becomes a battlefield. And you, a prisoner of your own hormones. This is why leaving feels impossible, because your body isn't ready to be free. It's still waiting for the next hit. That's why you fantasize about them changing. That's why you remember only the good parts. That's why you think, maybe it wasn't that bad. But that thought, that's the addiction talking. Let's pause. I want you to ask yourself something, gently, honestly. When was the last time you felt safe in this relationship? Not excited, not desired. Safe. Can you name a moment? Or have you only ever felt on edge, guessing, hoping, chasing? Because love, real love, doesn't make you sick. Love doesn't live in anxiety. Love doesn't keep you up at night, waiting to be chosen again. Love is not a performance. It is not a puzzle. It is not a punishment. It is presence. And if you've been living without that, then what you've had is not love. It was trauma, dressed up in romantic language. But here's the beautiful, brutal truth. You are not broken. You were just conditioned to bond with pain. And every time you try to leave, you're not just walking away from a person. You're walking away from the only version of love you were ever taught to accept, which means this grief you're feeling, it's not just for them. It's for you, the version of you that waited, that begged, that believed, the version of you that deserved more but didn't know what more even meant. This is why letting go hurts so much. Because you're not just losing someone. You're mourning who you became to keep them. And that is grief no one prepares you for. But there is good news. Withdrawal has a half-life. And every time you choose silence over begging, every time you resist texting back, every time you remind yourself of what actually happened, not the fantasy, you weaken the bond. You rewire the pattern. You come back to yourself. Slowly. Gently. Honestly. Because here's the truth no one told you. You can miss someone and still know they're not good for you. You can grieve someone and still choose to let them go. You can love someone and never go back. That's not betrayal. That's self-rescue. Carl Jung believed that healing comes from turning inward, not to escape others, but to reclaim the parts of us that we gave away to be loved. And that's what this journey is about now. Not revenge, not closure. Not getting them to understand, but finally becoming whole, without anyone else's permission. You've survived the chaos. Now, survive the quiet. But for now, remember this. Missing them is a symptom, not a signal. You don't need them back. You need you back. And that process has already begun. We go deeper into what happens after the silence, the fear of loneliness, and how trauma tricks you into thinking it's safer to stay. But for now, let this be your medicine. If you feel like you're going crazy, it means you're waking up. Your reality is not too much. It is returning. And this time, you will not apologize for it. You say you're afraid of being alone. But the truth is, you're already alone, even when they're beside you. In that silence after a fight. In the way you edit your words to keep the peace. In how you stare at their face and wonder if they even see you anymore. Loneliness isn't the absence of someone. Loneliness is the absence of yourself. inside the presence of someone who's supposed to love you. And this is where the illusion begins. You think that leaving will hurt more than staying, that walking away will drop you into a void you won't know how to survive. That silence will be louder than their inconsistency. But what if I told you? You're not afraid of loneliness. You're afraid of withdrawal. You're afraid of yourself when the noise disappears. Because here's the truth. Toxic love doesn't fill the space. It distracts you from it. It gives your pain a name, a face, a fight to keep fighting. So you stay, not for the connection, but for the occupation, so that you don't have to sit in the stillness and ask, who am I without this chaos? Carl Jung once said, loneliness does not come from being alone, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to you. And this is the wound that runs deepest. You're not scared of being alone in a room. You're scared of being alone with the parts of yourself that no one else has ever understood. The parts you silenced to be loved. The parts you buried to be safe. The parts they never made space for, because your pain was never their priority. So instead, you performed. You tried harder. You apologized faster. You loved louder, even when they barely whispered back. You became the caretaker of a relationship that gave you nothing to hold. And now, when you think of leaving, the question isn't, can I be alone? It's, will I even know who I am once I am? Let's pause. Ask yourself this. When was the last time you felt proud of who you were in this relationship? Not just tolerated. Not just trying, but proud. Do you even remember? Or has your identity been shrinking, piece by piece, just to survive their silence? That's what trauma bonding does. It convinces you that survival is love, that suffering is loyalty, that staying is strength. And when you think of walking away, your mind whispers, but I'll have no one. No one will understand me. No one will love me like this. But read that again. No one will love me like this. Is that not a good thing? Is that not exactly what you need? Here's the illusion. Toxic love doesn't make you feel whole. It makes you feel needed. There's a difference. You weren't chosen for who you are. You were chosen for what you give, what you tolerate, what you excuse. You became useful. Predictable, available. And now, the thought of being alone isn't terrifying because of emptiness. It's terrifying because you don't know who you are when you're not being used. Let that sink in. You're not afraid of being alone. You are afraid of being you, without the script, without the fixing, without the constant fight to matter. But that's the beginning of healing. That is where you meet yourself again. Not in their arms, in your own return. Loneliness is not your enemy. Loneliness is your mirror. It is the silence in which your soul finally speaks again. It is the space where your intuition gets loud, where your truth becomes unavoidable. And yes, it will ache. Not because something is wrong, but because something is real. So many people stay in toxic love because pain is familiar, and familiarity feels safe. But safety is not the absence of risk. It is the presence of peace. And ask yourself, honestly, when was the last time you felt peace in their presence? Not excitement, not lust, not comfort rooted in chaos. Peace. The kind of peace where you breathe without measuring, where you speak without rehearsing, where you exist without justifying. If that doesn't exist, then what are you clinging to? They say, better the devil you know. But what if the devil you know is killing you quietly? What if your fear of the unknown is the only thing keeping you from healing? Because the truth is this: you've already been alone. You've been alone in the room with them, alone in the fights, alone in the waiting, alone in the justifications. You're not walking into loneliness. You're walking into honesty. And yes, it may feel cold at first, but slowly, it will become warm in a way their love never was. What it actually means to rebuild your identity when your self-worth was shattered inside someone else's story. But for now, hear this: the silence you fear is the silence that will finally teach you how to listen to yourself. You've been alone for so long, with someone who never saw you. Now be alone with the one person who finally will. Why you can't leave a toxic relationship and how to break free. You've walked away, or maybe you haven't. Maybe you're still sitting in the middle of the storm, reading these words and whispering to yourself, "I don't know who I am without them." That's not weakness. That's truth. Because when you've been erased slowly, when your sense of self has been chipped away, memory by memory, apology by apology, of course you forget. Of course you mistake survival for identity. You weren't just in a relationship. You were in a system that trained you to believe your worth was negotiable. A system that made you trade self-respect for a seat at a table that kept disappearing beneath you. You gave up your voice to keep the peace. You shrunk your needs to avoid the arguments. You silenced your boundaries to earn their version of love. And now that they're gone, or almost gone, all you're left with is the echo of a self you barely recognize. Carl Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But first, you have to unbecome everything they convinced you to be." Let's start here. Who were you before this? Not what roles you played. Not who you were for them, but you. Before the people-pleasing. Before the second-guessing. Before the identity built around being easy to love. What made you laugh? What made you curious? What made you proud when no one was watching? If those answers are hard to find, that's okay. You were taught to forget. But now, you're allowed to remember. Rebuilding doesn't happen all at once. It's not a movie montage. It's not a list of affirmations. It's slow, messy, sometimes devastating, but it's real. Here's where it begins. Step 1. Name what you lost. Not just them. Name the pieces of yourself that vanished inside that love. Your voice, your creativity, your confidence, your opinions, your laughter, your rest. Write them down. Speak them aloud. Honor them like tombstones. Because grief must be named before healing can begin. Step 2. Rage gently. You were lied to, manipulated, shamed, gaslighted, abandoned. You have a right to be angry, but not just at them, at the version of you that was never allowed to feel. At the silence you swallowed, at the strength you performed just to be kept. Don't rush to forgive. Let the anger burn, not to destroy, to disinfect. Step 3. Reintroduce your needs, one by one, like long-lost friends. Start small, say no, and don't explain. Eat alone, and enjoy it. Speak up, even when your voice shakes. Rest, without guilt. Take up space, unapologetically. You are not too much. You are just with someone who couldn't hold even the smallest truth of you without making it about them. Step 4. Rebuild your nervous system. Your body is a war zone. It flinches at peace. It expects abandonment. It's been trained to find comfort in chaos. So now, you must teach it safety again, through breath, through boundaries, through consistency. Create rituals that feel like home. Light a candle before bed. Touch the ground with your bare feet. Write letters you never send. Hold your own hand when the urge to reach out overwhelms you. You are rewiring the home you live in, your own skin. Step 5. Tell the story differently. Not for them. For you. Because right now, your story might still sound like this. I stayed too long. I should have known better. I'm broken now. But none of that is true. Try this instead. I did what I had to do to survive. I'm unlearning patterns I never consented to. I am rebuilding with eyes wide open, and that's sacred. Reframe not to escape the pain, but to reclaim the power. And here's the hardest part. You will miss them, even now, even knowing everything you know. Not because they were right for you, but because trauma bonds don't dissolve with logic. They unravel slowly, each time you choose yourself again. And in that slowness, there will be temptation. A song, a smell, a memory, a birthday. Your mind will play tricks. Maybe I overreacted. Maybe it wasn't that bad. Maybe I was the problem. Pause. That's not your truth. That's the conditioning. That's the ghost of who you had to be to survive. Let it pass. Don't fight it. Don't feed it. Just notice it and return to you. Carl Jung believed that the journey of the soul isn't about becoming perfect. It's about becoming whole. And wholeness requires rupture. It requires loss. Pain. The collapse of everything false. But once it's gone, once the false self dies, the real one can finally begin to breathe. How to choose yourself, not as an act of defiance, but as an act of rebirth. But for now, I leave you with this. You are not healing to get them back. You are healing to get you back. And that is enough. There will come a morning, not dramatic, not loud, when you wake up and something is different. You won't cry. You won't feel fire or fury. You'll just notice a stillness, a small space inside you that isn't waiting anymore. Not waiting for them to text, not waiting for closure, not waiting for proof that you were worthy all along. Just still, and that will be the day you finally chose you. Not out of anger, not out of revenge, not to make them miss you, but because your soul, the one you've been abandoning in their name, whispered just loud enough this time for you to hear it say, I'm still here, and I'm ready to come home. Carl Jung said, your visions will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakens. You've been dreaming for a long time, dreaming that love would save you, that someone would finally see you, that one day all your sacrifices would be returned. But dreams are dangerous when they make you sleep through your own suffering. And now, you're awake. Here's what no one tells you about choosing yourself. It feels empty at first, not empowering, not victorious. Empty, like silence after war, like stepping into a house you used to live in, but no longer recognize. Because the life you're about to build, you've never seen before. No one taught you how to live without begging. No one modeled love that didn't require performance. So this is uncharted, and that's why it's powerful. You are not stepping into certainty. You are stepping into sovereignty. And that's the difference. You're not saying, I know what's next. You're saying, I know I won't abandon myself again. No matter who knocks. No matter how sweet the memory. No matter how loud the loneliness. Because choosing yourself isn't a one-time act. It's a discipline, a devotion, a quiet promise that says, no matter how long I was lost, I will never leave me again. You'll feel the urges to text, to check, to rewrite history. To convince yourself that maybe, just maybe, it could still work. That's okay. Let the thoughts come. Let them rise, but do not follow. Let the body remember. But do not let it decide. You're no longer being led by longing. You're being led by love. Real love. The kind that starts inside. It won't look like what you expected. You won't post a speech. You won't burn all the photos. You won't scream into the void. Instead, it'll look like this. Saying no and not explaining. Leaving a message unread without guilt. Laughing again and realizing you didn't think of them once. Making plans that don't revolve around who might leave. Being loved by someone new. And realizing it feels soft, not dramatic. Because love, real love, doesn't hit like lightning. It lands like sunlight, gentle, constant. Without apology. You may still ask, but what if I'm too broken? What if no one ever sees me like they did? Let me tell you something. They didn't see you. They used the parts of you that were most desperate to be seen. They admired your empathy, and then fed off it. They praised your loyalty, and then exploited it. They saw your softness and mistook it for permission. But now your softness has boundaries. Now your loyalty has a gate. Now your empathy has a mirror. You will never again confuse attention with care. This is the beginning of peace. Not the kind that demands silence, but the kind that rewards it. The kind where you no longer rush to fill the space. Where you no longer shrink so someone else can feel big. Where you no longer ask for love like it's something to be earned. Because you finally understand. Love is not earned. Worth is not voted on. You were never broken. You were just buried. And now, you rise. Let the world say you've changed. Let them wonder where the old you went. You owe no one your regression. The old you, the one who over-explained, who begged to be understood, who made herself small to keep others comfortable. She was never you. She was survival. This is rebirth. Carl Jung believed the self isn't found. It's forged. In fire. In endings. In the radical act of choosing truth over familiarity. And that is what you've done. You have stared into the mirror of your own pain. You have watched the mask fall. And instead of running, you stayed. You stayed through the withdrawal. Through the silence. Through the ache. And now you stand on the other side, not healed, but healing, not whole, but yours. So here is your final truth. You didn't lose them. You lost the version of yourself who thought you needed them to be whole. And that was the best loss of your life. If this story found you at the right time, tell us below. What part woke something up inside you? What are you choosing today? For yourself, by yourself, with no apology, because you are not alone anymore. You have you, and that is enough. If you're still healing in silence, come sit with us here. Subscribe to the Carl Jung tapes, where we don't chase closure. We choose awakening. You've spent enough time trying to be understood. Now, it's time to be free. If this story found you in the silence between staying and saving yourself, Stay here. Subscribe to the Carl Jung tapes, where we don't chase closure. We choose awakening. Tell us below, what part of you is finally ready to come home? Your words might just help someone else leave their cage.